All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mindful Hunter podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jay Nichol. And it's been a little while, so we are going to do a Q&A podcast this week. I put a little question thing up on Instagram a couple days ago, and I got a whack load of great questions. Also, I am in the final stages of preparation for bear camp. I'm packing up the truck tomorrow morning. I will head out to camp and set up camp Thursday, Friday. I'll come home kind of Friday afternoon. I'll be here for the weekend, and then first hunters show up Sunday. And then I got 4 straight weeks of hunters, which is a good segue. There's still one spot left. I got room for 2 people the week of June the 8th. So any weapon, spring bear hunt in British Columbia, high opportunity hunt. Outfitter went 13 for 13 last year. Lots of bears, big bears, lots of color phase bears. So if you got a last minute opportunity to get out of town and you want to come up to BC and chase some bears, jay@mindfulhunter.com. Also, the Forged in the Backcountry giveaway is now closed. I will be drawing that winner, I think most likely Saturday morning. I'll make a little post on Instagram here in the next couple hours, probably. I'm going to give that away. I'm going to give the Sig Zulu binoculars away for the Mindful Reviews. And then I also have a monthly giveaway I'm doing for the Mindful Reviews lifetime members for a knife from Bruce Culberson Knives. And I'll do all that in one go. Maybe what I'll do is hop on for a live session on Instagram Saturday morning and give all that stuff away. And I just had a phenomenal meeting yesterday with a company that I'm partnering with. I'm not going to get into any details yet, but there is tons of cool stuff on the way for Forged in the Backcountry. And I will probably pair that release with another big giveaway. Probably won't be until after hunting season, though, to be honest with you. Like, I am just slammed between now and kind of November, December with outfitting and hunting and all the rest of it. But I'm trying to think if there's any other housekeeping. Yeah, as usual, if you want to support the non-biased, unsponsored gear reviews that I do, head over to Mindful-Reviews, pick up a membership. We just crossed 400 members yesterday. We have 400 active subscribers. Sorry, 401 active subscribers as of yesterday. So super happy about that. That means the world to me that there's like 400 people that are actually willing to put their money where their mouth is and make a vote for unbiased gear reviews in this kind of like douche fluencer laden market that we're currently living in. It just gets worse and worse every day. Like some days I feel optimistic and I see a lot of good stuff out there. And then other days I open Instagram and I'm like, it's just full of shills, man. So anyways, we have an upbeat podcast, so I'm going to keep it upbeat. Let's just dive right into this. Best shot placement on a bear with rifle and best way to get steady fast with no equipment. I am going to preface all of this that I am like in the middle of upgrading my entire shooting system. And the shooting system to me also includes your training and your shooting ability. And that's probably the biggest thing that's going to change here in the next little while. So take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. I'm going to start with archery equipment because my answer doesn't change with archery equipment. You shoot center. So when a bear's heart and lungs are further back than in an ungulate, and also they have a lot of hair on them, which makes it difficult to know exactly where their body starts and stops. And so I always recommend shooting center. So horizontally center your pin and then vertically center your pin on the bear. Also, I shoot bears a little bit different than I shoot ungulates. So with an ungulate, you have a shoulder crease. And so the whole aim small, miss small still holds true. Like you can find a little patch of hair or a little piece of shadow. You can put your pin right on that little, itty bitty thing and drop your arrow right in there. When you shoot a black bear, it's literally like a black hole. Like that black hair just soaks up all the light. And so what happens when you get that tunnel vision and you're looking through your scope housing, you actually don't have a point of reference for where your pin is resting. So it's really hard to know, like, where's the shoulder? How far back do I go? So I actually try and have like a wider sight picture on bears. Like I don't focus on a tiny section. I focus on the whole bear. And when you have a rifle scope, it's called quartering the animal. Like you have your vertical line come through where you want it to vertically, and you have your horizontal line, which means you can actually shoot an animal from much farther away because you don't have to see the exact spot where you want the bullet to hit, as long as you're quartering the animal appropriately with your crosshairs. You can do the same thing with an archery pin. You just look at the animal as a whole and then put your pin, hold your scope housing so your pin is floating in that general center area. So that's what I like a lot for archery. I've killed a handful of bears with archery equipment. I've recovered every single one of them. Every single one of them was a pass through. I think that's a very good way to kill a bear. Now with rifle, the way I was always taught by Lander, who is outfitted literally thousands of bears, was to shoulder punch them. And the reason that we do that in British Columbia is if they get into the vegetation, you're screwed. A black bear, even a 7-footer, can disappear surprisingly fast. If they curl up into a ball under some root wad and it's like dark inside the timber, it is very, very challenging to try and find that bear. Also, if they get injured and you're stumbling around in there trying to find a bear, there's a very good chance, you could get injured. Also, high grizzly population where I usually hunt black bears. So the idea of wandering around for 2 or 3 hours looking for a dead critter when you got some grizzlies that are on their way in is also not particularly attractive. Now, the reason I give a slight caveat to that is that I think historically, most people were shooting black bears with a more traditional, like monolithic or a pedaling bullet, like a bullet that would fold back and kind of retain the majority of its weight. So they would probably favor a higher caliber, like a 30 caliber bullet. It would mushroom, but it would stay in one piece. And there's a lot of places on bears where if you put a bullet like that, it's going to create a very small wound channel. I have seen multiple bears take a 30 caliber bullet, fully broadside, do a barrel roll, get up and run away, and never to be seen or heard from again. And there's a bit of a no man's land kind of between the back strap and the top of the lungs, where apparently it's like bears can take a bullet and just get up and run away. It seems crazy to me, but I've seen it literally happen in front of me multiple times, which is why I prefer archery equipment for bears, because I've never lost a bear with archery equipment. I've personally never lost one with bullets either, but I have always used a highly fragmenting bullet. And so what that does is create a very large wound channel. So while I still say I do think shoulder punching a bear is acceptable, I'm going to be doing a lot of necropsies this year on the bears that we shoot. And I'm wondering if these smaller caliber, highly fragmenting bullets that are so popular right now, that are creating these devastating wound channels, if maybe it might not be best to go back to center punching them, because the wound channel is so big. I think you're going to get that drop them on the spot kind of result. Now, one thing that's interesting that I want to talk to Form to about at the Shoot to Hunt course is that I have heard that he's not as hardcore about recommending highly fragmenting bullets for animals like bears because they have very soft skin and maybe they don't open up as much. I've only ever shot bears with my 30 caliber ELDX, so the 212 grain 300 PRCs, and I have literally dropped every single bear I've shot with that gun on the spot. and I've shot some at under 100 yards. So theoretically, that's the speed at which an ELDX should not work appropriately. Like it should pencil. But I think the thing the 300 PRC has going for it is that at the end of the day, it's a 212 grain bullet. And when that thing slams into the side of a bear, as long as you're in remotely the right location, that bear ain't going far. So right now, I would have to say my recommendation, depending on the ammunition that you are using, would be shoulder punch if you're using a more traditional style bullet, or if you are at a distance where you don't think the highly fragmenting bullet is going to open properly. But if you're like over 200, 250 yards and that bullet is slowed down enough to where it's going to be operating appropriately, then I would probably go back to recommending center, because I think the size of these wound channels are so great that that bear's not going to run very far. And again, I will update you guys with more information after I go kill a bunch of bears this season. Heading out for my first spot and stock bear hunt on Thursday. Any tips? Yeah, lots of tips. Be aggressive. Okay, bears are not prey. Bears are predators. And so they do not have the same flight response as like a deer. Now, that being said, if you do something stupid, yeah, they're going to run away. But my approach has always been, it's a game of numbers with bear. I look at it like elk. Like with elk, you're not looking for any elk. You're looking for an elk that wants to play. You're looking for an elk that will respond to a call. You're looking for an elk that you can bring in and kill. With bears, you're looking for a bear that you can stalk because they don't do the same things that mule deer do. For example, they're not going to bed in one location for 3 hours and let you have this like really cognitive, strategic approach and like play it all out in your mind and take your time. It's like spot and stalk bears don't work like that. They get up, they run, they walk, they sit down, they do whatever they want, whenever they want, with very little rhyme or reason. And so when you see a bear, you got to go after it every single time. And you got to be aggressive. Get in there. As long as the bear is not looking at you, they do not have the same peripheral vision that a deer does. A deer can see 270 degrees. And so unless that deer is looking perfectly away from you, it can probably see you moving. A bear is not like that. As soon as it puts its head down to eat, go and go fast. Don't worry about taking your boots off. Don't worry about all that little shit because you're going to see more bears. And so the idea is not just to find a bear, but to find a bear that will let you make a play on it. I've had bears that have literally making eye contact with me while I walk up to them and shoot them. Especially when you get later on in the season, late May, early June, and the rut starts to kick off. These bears get full of, testosterone, and they're just wanting to fight and fuck everything that they see. And you can be a lot more aggressive. So I'm not saying be stupid. Definitely, make the right decisions. Go when you're supposed to go. Don't go when you shouldn't go. But be way more aggressive than you would typically be with a mule deer, because I'm looking to get as many stalks in as I can until I find the stalk that works out properly, instead of waiting all week for one perfect stalk like you would with a mule deer, for example. So I think that would be my biggest advice there. And then just like general tips, look for green up. The bears are going to be where the food is right now. Look for shit. Drive the roads, take an onyx point every time you see a piece of shit on the road, and you'll start to put together like a pattern about like where these bears are. They like big sloping curves in the road. Normally forestry companies grass seed these sections after building the road, so there's particularly lush grass in those sections. Anywhere there's been fresh road construction and disturbances with like new green up grass, railroad tracks are great, avalanche chutes are great. Any type of slide where there's more green up is great. Those would be my tips for stock and spot. Those would be my tips for spot and stock bear. Can you explain the process you went through to import the Maven rifle scope into Canada? No, I can't, because I didn't. With everything that 90% of the gear that I buy or get sent for review, I have it sent to my post office box in Blaine, and I drive across the border and buy it or pick it up, and I drive it home. I've told the border agents I'm bringing home a scope before. No one has ever said anything. The only thing that's actually considered a firearm that you need to be worried about bringing home is an action. You can bring over barrels. You can bring over all kinds of stuff. Now, that being said, if you were going to use a shipping agent to ship you a scope, like if you're going to order one directly and have it delivered to your house, you definitely need to fill out a permit application. I don't know what it's called. I know a guy on Mindful Reviews did one, and he said it was very easy. I'm sure if you just Google rifle scope import process into Canada, there's literally one piece of paperwork, and apparently it was super easy to do. Have you ever used a Bivy and tarp, and do you have any recommendations? Yeah, my recommendation is do not use a Bivy and tarp. Listen, a lot of people I respect love a Bivy and tarp setup. Trail Kreitzer loves a Bivy tarp setup. Steve from EXO, Mark from EXO, love a Bivy tarp setup. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Everybody talks about how easy it is to set up and how light it is and how quick it is to put away. Doesn't make any sense to me. A tarp is way harder to put up than a freestanding shelter. I can put up a dome style freestanding shelter in like 45 seconds. It takes zero time at all. And the weight doesn't make any sense to me either, because by the time you put together the weight of a tarp and a bivy, you are at what an ultralight freestanding shelter would weigh. And so, yeah, and it's also not nearly as robust of a system. Wind can blow in, like wind and rain can blow in from underneath. I guess one argument is the small footprint, but like if you're in a 1P freestanding shelter, I don't understand why the footprint is any larger. Or even, let's just skip straight to a floorless shelter. Like, let's look at the Argali Owyhee, which is basically like a tarp and bivy setup. But if you're in the Argali Owyhee, you don't need a bivy. Like, what would, other than keeping the condensation off of your bag, which if you use a synthetic bag, you don't need to worry about anyways. So like, there's your solution to that issue. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. I fail to see the benefit. I feel like the weight is the same. It's more stuff to set up. It's harder to set up. Like, let's look at like a goat hunt or a sheep hunt where you're up above tree line. You know, even getting in pegs can be an issue. And then are you using your trekking poles to set up your tarp? And then where do you leave your gear during the day if you need your trekking pole back? Or are you comfortable just leaving your gear out underneath a tarp? Like, is that actually going to protect it? I don't know. It literally makes no sense to me whatsoever. I have done just a bivy before. I took one to New Mexico on an elk hunt because the just a bivy makes sense to me because you don't have any setup time whatsoever. You're literally just rolling it out, getting in and going to sleep. Here's the problem with the bivy. If you don't have a tarp and it starts raining, it literally feels like you're being buried alive. Like, it is terribly claustrophobic inside one of those. I had the worst night of my life in New Mexico on that hunt. 0 rain in the forecast. It's New Mexico, should not have been an issue. And I had like a monsoon from like 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And I had to zip that thing closed. I could feel the rain like smacking down on my face. I didn't get wet, but couldn't breathe in there. It was terrible. Also, I'm a big dude, 6'1", 240. I don't fit real well inside a lot of these bivvies. Some of them don't have room for your sleeping pad inside. And so then you still have to bring some type of ground sheet in order to protect your sleeping pad. All of these things it's like, if you want to go ultra light, you are going to be giving up some level of protection. So at that point, why are you not just going floorless shelter? Like, why wouldn't you just go with the Argalia Waihi? It's like 1 pound, without the nest. And just ditch the bivy, have a synthetic bag, and bring a like Dyneema ground tarp that's going to weigh 4 ounces. There you go. Done deal. So that's my thoughts on a tarp and bivy. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why people do it. If your kid and wife were on board, would you move out of the lower mainland? Yeah. Oh, and then what are your top 3 areas? Yeah, I 100% would move out of the lower mainland. For what I paid for the house I'm living in right now, I could have a 100-acre compound anywhere else in British Columbia. What I do for a living would be a lot easier. Now, I will preface this that even if my kid was into it, my kid goes to a phenomenal school right now. I got moved around a lot as a kid. She knows her friends. She knows her teachers. She's in grade 4. She's gone to the same school since kindergarten. She's going to go there until she goes to high school. I probably, no matter what my wife and kid wanted to do, I probably wouldn't ask her to move schools because I want her to have that stable upbringing that I didn't have. But let's say hypothetically that wasn't an issue. Yeah, I'd move out of the lower mainland instantly. Now, top 3 areas. First 2 are going to seem very intuitive. Okay, choice number 1 is the Peace. Without a moment's hesitation, that's where I would move. Choice number 2 would actually be Smithers. I love Smithers. I got good friends in Smithers. The hunting is phenomenal out of Smithers. You got great access to other like northern hunting areas that don't see as much pressure because they're so far to drive to for so many British Columbians. Third choice is probably not as, you wouldn't guess it as quickly. I think I'd move to Kamloops. I find myself in Kamloops a lot recently. Even the new hunting territory I just bought is still accessible from Kamloops. I love the weather in Kamloops. There's lots of great local hunting in Kamloops. You are cutting 4 hours off your drive to get up north. You don't have to deal with the level of tourism that exists in the Okanagan, but you still get the nice weather. And it's probably, you still do get a lot of the benefits of big city living, like access to services, stuff for your kid that might not be as readily available in a place like somewhere in the Peace or Smithers. So yeah, those are my top 3 locations. Can you release the unsuitable conversation with Ryan from last week? I'll sign an NDA. We didn't even talk about anything that salacious, to be honest with you. We just started talking about hunting related stuff. So there was like, we were also talking about some shoot to hunt stuff and some stuff about my outfitting business, just stuff that's more like private conversation stuff, not stuff you would want out on a podcast. Unfortunately, I don't have any juicy details, or we weren't talking shit about anybody or anything like that. So nothing too fun. Am I planning to hire guides in the upcoming years looking to add non-bait bear guiding? So yes and no. And I'll give you a little insight into the kind of 5 to 10 year plan for Mindful Hunter outfitting. So my goal has always been to provide a hybrid experience for the DIY hunter, like the guy who wants to go on a badass hunt, but also maybe could use some skill development or just some more reps, some more experience. And so providing that type of environment is very important to me. I also have a lot of guys who aren't interested in that. Like I got guys coming to Alberta this year that are just killers and they just want to go hunt mule deer in one of the most badass places on earth to hunt mule deer. But I want to retain that level of quality of experience. Like I've shown up to guided hunts before and felt like a number. I remember showing up to an elk hunt in, and I'll put him on blast, Cody Carr's hunting adventures in northern Montana was the worst guided hunt I have ever been on in my life. The experience that he told me about on the phone was so far from the experience I had when I showed up. It was like two completely different businesses. It was atrocious. I would never recommend anybody book a hunt with that guy. And that is my personal opinion based on my personal experience on a hunt that I paid for. It was brutal. And so I don't ever want somebody to show up for a hunt with me and feel like they're a number. And here's the problem. The guides are your business. You know, when I was in business school, a professor once told the class that the most interesting problems or the hardest problems to solve in your business are the core of your business. And if you outsource those problems, you are outsourcing your business. And no one is going to care as much about your business as you do. Now, the hardest part after sales, and I would rather outsource sales. I mean, people outsource sales in outfitting all the time. And I'll actually get into the complications of outsourcing sales in a minute, because those are kind of like expectations are created during the sales process, and then they're either delivered upon or not delivered upon during the guiding process. And so both of those touch points have the ability to create a resentment or a disappointment. Expectations are just premeditated resentments. They are just you building up an image in your mind that may or may not come to fruition. And so ensuring that during the sales process, the description of the hunt that the person is going to receive is as accurate as possible is of utmost importance. But then during the guiding process, ensuring that the fulfillment of those expectations occurs is equally as important. So like those are the two levers that constantly need to be monitored. And so the issue with hiring guides is that in a way, you are outsourcing the most important or the hardest problem to solve in your business. Just like hiring a broker to sell hunts is the same thing. You don't know what they're telling the client. You don't know what kind of expectations they're showing up with. Now, there are great brokers out there and there are shit brokers out there. And so just like there are great guides out there and there are shit guides out there. And so I want to bring on guides, but not at the expense of the quality of the experience. And because I'm adding a different dimension to my guided hunts, this like opportunity to learn and also opportunity to access. Like I want hunters to feel I literally am on my phone constantly. And it's because I've got a bunch of hunters booked, even with the apparel sales, like people are always asking me questions. And I want the hunter to feel like once they have a hunt booked with Mindful Hunter Outfitting, obviously I want them to be respectful of my time, but you have unlimited access to Mindful Hunter Outfitting. You got a question, you text me. I will get back to you as soon as physically possible because I want you to feel like I care as much about your hunt as you care about your hunt. And one of the concerns I have about hiring guides is that like, how do I ensure the continuity of that experience? If they've been talking to me the whole time and then they get guided by somebody else, do they feel disappointed? One of the ideas I'm playing with, so I really want one person to come in as like a semi partner and other guide. My buddy Leighton, to be brutally honest, I'm trying to figure out how Leighton can come on with me as full-time as possible. Now, obviously he's got other commitments. He has a full-time job. He's got a great career. He's got a wife. He's got a family. I'm not in a position where I can go, here's $100,000 a year to come work for me. But let me tell you why I want Leighton to come work for me. He's one of the only dudes I know that probably cares more about other people's success than his own. Like he would almost rather take other people out than go out himself. On top of that, he's a very accomplished hunter. You would never know it. The guy is so humble, it's crazy. He's a very accomplished hunter. He's a super gear nerd. He understands backcountry hunting. He has a phenomenal personality. He is, well-spoken. He's intelligent. He cares about people. He has a good communication style. So somebody like that who's going to be embedded in the business, then it's like, okay, maybe every time we sell a hunt, that person gets assigned to somebody. And it's like, okay, this is going to be the guy who's guiding you. So from now on, even if the hunt's 2 years out, and that's the problem with hiring guides is you don't know who you're going to have seasonally. You can't really provide that continuity of experience. But if I kept the business small enough that there was only 2 or 3 guides ever working and they were all working full time, and you could say like, okay, when I sell a guy a hunt, listen, Leighton's going to be your guide for your goat hunt in 2027. He's going to talk to you about your gear list. He's going to talk to you about pick up and drop off at the airport. He's going to talk to you about your dietary restrictions. He's going to talk to you about your trophy expectations and the opportunity expectations on this hunt. He's going to talk to you about the past hunts he's guided in the same area. And he's going to kind of like mentor you through this hunt and be your single point of contact so that you have this set expectation of the quality, the experience you're going to receive. That's what I'm trying to build. And maybe it'll take longer to build that. And I don't care. If I just wanted to get rich, there's way easier ways to do it. I never would have quit my job, business consulting. I'll tell you that much. What I'm trying to do, don't get me wrong, I want to make money. And I think I can make great money doing this. But the priority is the quality of the experience. So yes, I'm looking to expand to the point where I need to bring on some guides or a guide, but probably not this kind of like, seasonal, bring on 3 or 4 guys to bear hunt camp, have a bunch of hunters come in. Some of the hunts are great. Some of the hunts are not so great. Some people get along. Some people don't. The kind of environment. I want it to be much more like tactical. Like I want it to be, where people are assigned and it's like, you just have a much deeper sense of ownership about your hunt, both from the hunter's perspective and the guide's perspective. So there's that. A lot of brands we as Canadians buy come from the US. Do you think tariffs are going to affect price? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't see how it can't, but I also don't see, like, people are always looking to drive up price. Go look at what it cost 10 years ago for a combo from McDonald's and look what it costs now. Inflation on some things in the last 10 years is close to 100%. Inflation is supposed to be 2 to 3% per year. We're cracking away at like 20% per year in some categories. And the way they calculate inflation, they cherry pick what products to look at and what product segments to analyze. And it's nonsense. If you really want to see how inflation impacts you, look at the price of gas. Look at your food bill from the grocery store. Look at the price of your hydro. Look at the price of your natural gas. Look at the price of eating out at a restaurant. Like those things have basically all doubled in the last 10 years. And I don't know about you, but salaries have not doubled in the last 10 years. So I also don't think we need tariffs as an excuse for the prices of things to go up. I think most manufacturers will use any excuse they can to elevate prices. And then it's just a matter of what people are willing to pay. I think my long-term forecast is that the tariff stuff is not going to be the behemoth of a problem that a lot of these economists think it's going to be. I think personally it's more of a negotiating tactic right now. I think Donald Trump wants the whole world to think that he is a fucking gangster that does not give a shit about what any of these countries think. And they've got one of the biggest economies. They've got the biggest military. And he's like, listen, I'm sick of not having the best economy or the highest growing GDP and having all this debt while in a way subsidizing all these other countries. And listen, man, I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit. And I think once he kind of muscles through all these negotiations, and I don't agree with some of his tactics. I don't understand why he's viewing Canada, for instance, the way he is. Makes no sense to me whatsoever, other than the fact I think he doesn't want to be seen as playing favorites. Because if he was to give Canada a particularly sweet deal, then Japan would go, how come we don't get a sweet deal? And it's easier for him to just look like he doesn't give a shit. He's going to play hardball with every single country. But my gut says within 6 months to a year, once all the dust settles, once he's got the negotiations ironed out, he wants ironed out, a lot of this stuff is just going to return to a natural state, more in line with what we're used to dealing with. Economies have a natural state of equilibrium based on supply and demand. And any kind of extraneous forces like, governmental regulation, tariffs, fabricating price increases, cartels, all that kind of stuff, they can introduce temporary changes to the economy. But like these things are so vast with so many moving parts that like eventually the dust settles. This is why the S&P 500 over the last 120 years has consistently gained, I don't know what it is, like 8 to 11% per year. Like, listen, you've gone through world wars, you've gone through depressions, you've gone through recessions, you've gone through booms, busts, everything in between. But like the machine just keeps chugging away because it's so big now that it all kind of works out in the end. So my forecast is that it's not as big of a deal as everybody's making it out to be. While at the same time, I understand it creates very acute problems for some people. So I'm not going to deny that fact, but I don't see a long-term issue. Stiff sole boots for good edging or flexible boots for good smearing on technical terrain. I'm a stiff boot guy. Couple reasons. One, I've had some foot issues before. And two, I have very high arches. So also number three, I tend to have very heavy packs because I do longer hunts. If I was a Bivy elk guy that only ever put 2-3 days on my back and was running around with a 30 or 40 pound pack, I would probably be giving a different answer. But more often than not, I've got 70 plus pound on my back. That puts a lot of pressure on your arches. Your arches tend to collapse. That creates a lot of immobility in your foot and creates a lot of functional issues. And so I like a lot of arch support. I like a good orthotic. I like very stiff soled boots that are going to stand up to me walking in steep terrain. They're going to help take some of the pressure off of my calf and ankle. And so like a 3 out of 4 for me is kind of where the conversation starts. Even in my regular elk hunting boots, I fall on the stiff side. Now, some people will make an argument that you are compensating for weak ankles and all the rest of it. And I'm like, I guess. But it's like everything we do is compensating for like, I'm almost looking at it as optimization, not compensation. Like, do I want to get the most out of the hunt? Or do I want to worry about having the strongest ankles in the world? It's like, I want to get the most out of the hunt. So I'm going to use the tools that help me get the most out of the hunt. And I know I can hike further and I have less musculoskeletal strain on my body when I have a stiffer boot with better ankle support. So that's where I land on that particular issue. Budget shelter options. Yeah, that's a really good question. I would go to your local camping store, like an REI or a Mech if you're in Canada, and I would look at whatever's on sale. Like, listen, man, a dome style tent has come, the material, the seam sealing, all that stuff has come so far. Like, there's not really that much difference unless you're buying like a Hilleberg or a Durston or a Sea to Summit or a Samaya, like some of these ultra premium brands, sure, they will have poles that are made of materials that not a lot of other companies have access to. They will use certain fabrics that not a lot of other companies have access to. But if you look at 98% of the shelter market, they are all using the same 20D nylon. They are all using either the same DAC or Easton pole set. They are all using the exact same zippers. And so just go in there, get a 2-person shelter that's on sale. I guarantee you can get one for sub $200. No problem. Or look at a small floorless shelter. Look at I love the Argalia Waihi. For one dude, that is a very purpose-built shelter. I still believe if you're only going to have one shelter for the rest of your life and you're on a budget, it should probably be a freestanding shelter because it's more utilitarian. But that would be my recommendation. Go in there, get an off hunting brand, off premium brand that's just on sale. It's going to do you just fine. And then when you make a bunch more money, go get something fancy. What diaphragm will you be using for your elk hunt? So my favorite diaphragm on the planet is the Phelps Pink Signature, followed closely by the gray amp from Phelps. And those would be tied with the yellow pitch blacks, the 1, the 2, and the 3. Here's my recommendation for people. If you are already an expert elk caller, I would have like a cow diaphragm and a bull diaphragm. And for me, that's the pink Phelps Signature paired with, I can't remember, it's either the number 1 or the number 3, because the number 2 pitch black is actually very, very similar to the pink Phelps Signature. But the 1 or the 3 is a better cow call, which will also give you better calf mews. Then yes, have 2 of those. Those are my 2 picks. But if you're good at it, you will know by now which calls tend to work very well for you. So if you're new, I would go buy a little sampler. And yeah, it's going to cost you $100 because elk calls are unbelievably expensive right now. But I would buy a couple different calls from a couple different manufacturers. And maybe if you're on a budget, just buy one. Buy the most popular call from, say, 3 different manufacturers, like Rocky Mountain, what's the one in Canada, Elk Slayer, Wapiti River, and then one from Phelps. I don't even care who they're from, because everybody's mouth has a different shape. I tried 50 different elk calls. The first elk call that worked great for me was the gray amp from Phelps. I just put it in my mouth and it worked. I'd been going crazy for 6 months, could barely make a noise. I put that one in, bam. Still to this day, I try to use those Wapiti River ones. I go crazy. Those just do not work for me. They don't fit in the roof palate of my mouth. And so even though I'm pretty good at elk calling now, I still can't make a call that doesn't fit my mouth work for me. Like it ain't going to work. So try 3 or 4 different brands. Try and make a cow mew is the simplest, like, mwah, mwah, is the simplest sound to make. Don't try bugling. It's way harder to make a bugle. Corey Jacobson is the material I learned from, and he starts trying to make you say the word hiss, hiss. And that pushing up of the tongue onto the back of the palate of the roof of your mouth forces the air, and it makes you get that and then you start making like the cow mews. You make like a EOs, like meow, meow. And when you start to be able to put those 2 pieces together, it actually is very easy to make cow mews. Bugles, harder, take longer. We could have a very in-depth conversation about elk calling, and I'm actually favoring more cow mews in my elk calling these days. I had way more success with that last year than I did with bugling. Anyways, that's what I would recommend, but nothing has worked. The quality of bugle that I get from that pink Signature from Phelps is phenomenal. What does the final tattoo look like, and how much did the second day suck? So if anybody's watching this on YouTube right now, that's why I have one sleeve rolled up. You can actually see the tattoo. So the tattoo was originally supposed to be three of my most important kills. By most important, meaning my most meaningful, like they meant the most to me as a hunter. It was my first archery elk that I killed solo in New Mexico. My mule deer, archery mule deer that I killed in Arizona, and then my island black bear that I killed last year with my bow. All three were archery kills. And it was supposed to be all three. And as I was supposed to be a full sleeve, and as I was talking with the tattoo artist, we decided to nail it or narrow it down to just two kills because, or two animals, because it was just like we were going to start cramming things in. And I still have the whole inside of my arm that the mule deer might go on, but we'll worry about that later. And so you basically have the Euro mount or the Euro skull of the elk on my forearm, and then the antlers go around up the back of my tricep and over my shoulder, and then maybe a little bit up onto my neck. And then they also go around the front of the bicep. And then cradled in between those is the bear, like big, gnarly, growling bear head. And then his paw is like reaching out and it's on top of the elk antler. And you can kind of see, if I stand up right now, it looks so badass, man. There's his claw going over the elk antler. And so that's what the finished product is going to look like. It's 2 full days. I did 14 hours of tattooing last week. And then once bear season is over, I probably got another 2 full days to finish this. And it'll still really be just a half sleeve. I'll still have to do the inside at some point. This burned like sin. I am not going to lie, man. I was thinking to myself, because you see all these like 20-year-old chicks running around with sleeves. I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. Man, kudos to them ladies, because like this shit sucks. And the healing part is even worse. Like I slept like shit for 3 days. Last night was the first night I got a decent night's sleep. Popping Advil like Tic Tacs for a few days. Like, oh yeah, it's brutal. But I mean, the dude like is knocking this thing out of the park. Like the skull looks so insane. Like it is the coolest tattoo I've ever seen in my life. So I couldn't be happier. And yeah, the second day sucked balls. When solo hunting, where do you keep your extra day's food? Tent or hung in a tree? All right, here you go. You want a glimpse behind the curtain? Nobody hangs their food in a tree when they're hunting. Listen, if I get dropped off by a plane, or if I'm in a situation where I have 2 different bags of food, like if I'm going to leave something for multiple days on end, I will go hang it in a tree someplace. I guess I've done that once when I got dropped off by a plane. We went in with 3 guys and we actually created a dump sack, like a big backpack style dump sack that had like extras of everything in case we got stuck in there. So 3-4 days worth of food, batteries, all that kind of stuff. And we hung it up in a tree 100 yards from the strip. So if something happened, we knew we had this like home base to get back to. Other than that, I have never hid food up in a tree in my life. I keep it in my tent with me. I don't do dumb shit around camp. I tend to walk 100 yards away to brush my teeth. You know, I've heard the smell of toothpaste is very attractive to bears. And so I'll brush my teeth away from camp and spit it out. I don't keep like protein bar wrappers in my tent. I don't do dumb shit. I wrap all my food up before the end of the night. Like I'll take all like my empty, dehydrated meal bag. That goes in my garbage bag. It goes in a dry bag. Like everything gets packed up tight every night. And if I'm on a rifle hunt, I sleep in my tent with a loaded rifle every night. I would rather some bear try and get my food and I shoot him than some bear get my food and I either be in a situation where I have to, hike out, or maybe I'm so far back in, maybe losing my food, jeopardizes, my safety as a hunter. Like I'm not doing it. I also don't know how many people, like I don't know of a single person who's ever reported that a bear broke into their tent because they had a dry bag with food inside Ziploc bags inside that dry bag. Like I don't see that as being an attractant for a bear. I think where this comes from is like, listen, when you're camping at a campground and you're barbecuing and you've got burger grease and stuff in camp, yeah, a bear is going to come into camp and try and get into your cooler and do shit like that. But it's like, that's not how you operate in the backcountry. You have a very small footprint. Everything is enclosed. And so, yeah, I don't do it. Now, listen, am I telling you to not hang your food in a tree? No, I'm not. You need to do whatever it is that you think is safe at the time for you and whatever makes you feel comfortable. But that's what I do. And I've hunted with a fair amount of people, and I have never yet witnessed somebody go hang their food in a tree. So maybe you would hear differently from other people, but I would very confidently guess that nobody else is hanging their food up either. Are you going to be hanging elk cams in the Peace region this summer? The answer is hopefully. So I have some travel plans. I've got some hunt plans. I was originally supposed to go up and scout either in the Peace for elk or for my goat hunt for a week in July when my kid goes to camp. But then I bought this new hunting territory. I have a goat hunter coming in September, and I need to open up the trail that gets me to kind of my goat area. And I also need to get up into that area, familiarize myself with it. You know, a goat hunt is a big deal. People spend a lot of money. Could be a once in a lifetime thing for them. I want to have this so dialed that there is very little left to chance. So I'm going to get up into that area. I want to put my eyes on some goats. I want to figure it out so I don't have that week in July to head up north anymore. You know, I'm doing my goat hunt again this year with Vance. Maybe if we tag out early, I would have the opportunity to run over to the Peace and hang some cams. Now, I drew Montana elk this year. So we will be heading to Montana for archery elk, me and two buddies, Vance and Ben. And so there's a chance I won't get up to the Peace. However, there is a 4 to 5 day window in September where it looks like I might be able to get away and get up there for some elk. So I would hope that I can get up there. I also have cams that I've left from last year that I put cards in. Also, I've been hunting the Peace now for 3, if not 4 years. I can't rightly recall. And so I feel like if I have 4 or 5 days to go up there and get it done, and even if I'm going up there by myself, I feel pretty confident. I think there's like 80% chance I can put an elk down in that time frame. So if I don't get to hang cams, it's not the end of the world. The answer is I would most certainly like to. Best zoom range for Western rifle scope, first or second focal plane. I'm going to say 3 to 15. Really, I would like 18, but that cuts out 90% of the scopes in the price weight range that I would recommend. And so I'm going to say the most reasonable is going to be 3.5, 4, whatever, up to 15. I would say first focal plane is a necessity. I understand the concepts, but I can't explain them super clearly right now. I will go over this again after the shoot to hunt course. But first focal plane scopes allow you to make on the fly adjustments using the marks, especially if you're shooting in Millerad on your scope. Second focal plane does not do that because the amount that you zoom in or out would change how those marks would be interpreted in distance out in the field. So first focal plane is a deal breaker for me, has to be first focal plane. And I would go 3.5 to 15. If you've got the money and you can get something that goes to 18, I would recommend that. From what I understand, going any greater than that does not increase your accuracy. And again, I know this is a somewhat controversial topic, but until further notice, kind of following this shoot to hunt methodology, getting a chance to go learn from Form personally. I've been spending a lot of time lately talking with Avery on the phone and kind of getting things dialed. And the way those guys explain things makes a lot of sense to me. They've killed a lot of shit. They've got a lot of experience. So that's what I'm going to go with. And the way they explain it, in fact, there could be a benefit to having even less magnification, which is counterintuitive. And then finally, if you want my ultimate recommendation for a scope, I would call it a budget scope. It's $1,200 US. So I know that's not a budget for most people. But if you look at what really good scopes cost, it's not that bad at all, is a Maven RS 1.2, 3.5 to 15, or whatever it is. First focal plane in mill, get that. Bob's your uncle, good to go. Do you still hate mountain ops? And if so, what's your go-to in the field? Okay, I don't hate mountain ops. Maybe I do hate mountain ops. Here's what I hate. I hate companies that rely on false marketing in order to drive sales. Now, everybody, gets a little poetic license with their marketing. I can live with that. Everybody uses kind of flowery language. Everybody makes claims that are like a little bit, but there's some companies that it's absurd how far they push it. Vortex is one. They will tell you that a Vortex Diamondback uses the latest generation of optical clarity, and they will use all this. It's a $200 pair of binoculars. They're garbage when compared with premium glass. And so, but they will like spin this, tale of like greatness with all this jargon. But if you actually know how optical glass is made, what these coatings are comprised of, they're saying nothing. Like it's just gibberish, just blah, 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 blah. Like it might as well be the Charlie Brown teacher. Wah, 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 wah. Like it's just nonsense marketing jargon. Mountain Ops is in the same boat. And I know I need to get around to this review, and I promise you guys I will do it because I actually think it's one of the things that I could deliver that would be of most value to you guys right now. And that is clinically dismantling the supplement ingredient lists in these guys like pre-workouts and all this kind of stuff, because it's shit. The other thing is like Black Flag. Has anybody gone and looked at the product Black Flag is selling? It is hot trash. Okay, here is how, formulation works. Okay, there will be academic studies on ingredients. Let's take citrulline malate as an example. Actually, I'm going to take that back. Just citrulline. You can mix citrulline with malic acid and it becomes citrulline malate. It's still just a mechanical mixing process, so they're not actually bonded. But if you add the malic acid, it's normally at a 1-to-1 ratio. So you actually need twice as much L-citrulline to make it as effective as just pure citrulline with malic acid added in later. So let's take L-citrulline. L-citrulline is like a pump chemical, a pump product. It helps push blood and nutrients into the muscles. If you've ever done a gym workout and you get that phenomenal pump where you just feel like Superman, like, I'm like jacked, bro. My chest is ripping apart when I'm doing flies. My biceps are popping out of the seams. Taking L-citrulline will help you get that easier. And there is an argument to be made that that effect will drive more nutrients and blood into the muscle tissue and give you a more efficacious workout. So the clinical dose of L-citrulline is between 3 and 6 grams. And for safety's sake, if you look at any premium supplement, the dose of L-citrulline will start at 6 grams. And what this means is, in those scientific studies, when they used citrulline and they came to a conclusion that it had an efficacious effect, it happened when the dose reached that limit. That does not mean if you use half the dose, you can get half the effect. It means that from a scientific, evidence-based perspective, when citrulline hits 6 grams per dose, you get an effect that is desired. And so if you were going to put that product in your supplement, you need to put it at a clinical dose for it to have the advertised effect. Do you know how much citrulline is in the Black Flag product Revenge. 1 gram, 1/6 of the clinical dose. You would need to take 6 doses daily of this bunk product in order to reach the clinical dose. I did a quick research. I looked up how much teacrine. They had like 1/4 the amount of teacrine. I literally looked up how much huperzine A they're using. I just did a quick scan. If you really want, it's not hard to look this stuff up. I did a quick scan, cherry picked 5 or 6. None of them were over the 25% of what the clinical dose is. So here's what these companies do. These companies realize there's a bunch of buzzwords, right? Like teacrine, huperzine A, bioperin, L-citrulline, citrulline malate. Oh, just to close that out. If it says citrulline malate on the label, that number should be at least doubled. If it says citrulline malate, I wouldn't take a product with any less than 8 grams because that means there's only 4 grams of L-citrulline in there. So L-citrulline and citrulline malate are 2 different things, and you need a higher dose of the second. But anyways, these products take all these companies take all these products that have all these buzzwords, and then they're expensive. They're really expensive. The products, the chemicals that work are expensive. So instead of actually putting a clinical dose of each of these elements in their supplement, they just kind of like put these little magic fairy dust sprinklings. Oh, we'll put in 20% of what you actually need of L-citrulline, 30% of what you actually need of teacrine, 15% of what you actually need of huperzine. And the average Joe on the market takes this crap product from Black Flag, looks at the label on the back and goes, oh, look, it's got citrulline malate. It's got teacrine. It's got huperzine A. It's got bioperin. It's got everything I need. I buy it. You're just buying flavored water. There's not even any electrolytes in this product from Black Flag. And they're touting it as some kind of like focus. They're saying you can use it as a pre-workout. You can drink it in the middle of the day. It's like, listen, man, it's fairy water. It's garbage. Do not buy it. Here's what I will say about supplements. And yes, I promise you, I will put out a more detailed supplement package about like what to watch out for, what to buy. I've been doing this shit for 25 years. All of the hunting brands. Do you know somebody sent me a supplement they wanted me to, and they were sponsored by this. It's called Bucked Up. There is crushed up antler velvet in this pre-workout. Like, I lost my mind. I was like, bro, you have some self-respect. Like, what are you taking bear gallbladders out next? Like, what is this hocus pocus nonsense? There is zero scientific evidence to prove that deer velvet has some type of physiological response that would be sought after. It does not. It's garbage. It's marketing voodoo. It's nonsense. And what pisses me off is that these companies are openly disrespecting you as a customer when they do this shit. Like when a company like Black Flag puts 15% the recommended dose of something, they are basically saying, fuck you. I think you're an idiot. I don't think you're smart enough to look up how much of this should be in here. And I'm just going to take your money, rip you off, and sell you a bottle of snake oil. And because I spend so much money on marketing and because I give so much money to douchefluencers with these affiliate codes and all the rest of it, and I've got the like marketing influencer, like go look at who owns all these companies. It's all the same people. They use the same marketing tactics time after time again. They use the same influencers time after time again. Like it's ridiculous. But listen, let's get back to the topic at hand. What I would recommend is taking the time to understand what you actually need and then go looking at respectable companies that focus on supplements and buying from them. I think the list of what you actually need is quite small. The only supplement product, there's 2 supplement products that I buy regularly, okay? One is an electrolyte product. My favorite one is Element, LMNT. I love it. Super high dose of sodium, magnesium, and potassium. Tastes phenomenal. It's got a bit of a salty flavor to it. I drink it every day. I've got my I have a 1 liter water bottle right here. After my first coffee in the morning, I fill this up and I don't allow myself to have a second coffee until I drink this whole liter of water with Element in it. I take 2 packets of Element with me in the backcountry every day. I buy that. You can get like an assorted pack for like $120, comes with 4 boxes. I love the chocolate version. I make that at night when I'm in the backcountry. It's like a hot cocoa, but like a salty hot cocoa. It helps me go to sleep. I have one in the morning sometimes. If I want to push that second cup of coffee even later, I'll drink one of those chocolate Elements, get another boost of electrolytes. Love it. I will also buy a pre-workout. I like a pre-workout, and I like a fairly good dose of stimulants in my pre-workout. There's a couple that I would recommend. I would recommend anything by Hostile Supplements, Fuad's brand. I would buy anything by HD Muscle. Derek, More Plates, More Dates. His supplement brand, I think, is called Gorilla Mind. That is, the taste is like not the best in the world. But if you're looking for bang for your buck, as far as like clinical doses of all the elements in all the products at the lowest possible price, Gorilla Mind is going to be your go-to. So if you're going to buy mixed products of any kind, those 3 companies I would highly recommend. For protein, I like Allmax Isoflex. I only drink whey isolate protein. It digests way better. It mixes way better. It's more bioavailable. Unless you're broke, I don't see a purpose of buying a concentrate or a blend. And then for creatine, it doesn't matter. It's all made in the same place. You can buy a 1 kilogram tub of creatine monohydrate from any distributor you want. It's really only made in one place, and you're fine. And it should be cheap. It should be like $40 for a kilogram. The shit will last you 6 months. And I take upwards of 20 grams of creatine a day right now. They're showing heavy nootropic benefits and potentially like abating Alzheimer's symptoms and all kinds of stuff with high doses of creatine. But it's like, you don't need a lot of pre-made supplements. I think a good fish oil supplement can help. But my recommendation would be, think about what you actually need to improve performance and recovery. Then go look for well-respected companies outside of the hunting industry. I haven't found any hunting, like I know a couple of friends of mine who even market for this one particular company that's like a heavy hunting related brand. They seem like nice guys, so I'm not going to call them out, but their ingredient lists are shit. I haven't seen anybody in the hunting space that is actually producing. I think Hydrate and Recover by Wilderness Athlete is actually a great product for like a flavored electrolyte drink in the backcountry. But even their pre-workout, it's not good. From a clinical dose perspective, look outside the hunting industry. Look at people who've been doing this. Like dudes who are in the bodybuilding world are super anal about this stuff. And they are way more picky about who they buy supplements from. So like, yeah, get outside of the hunting industry. I don't have a single hunting related supplement brand that I would personally recommend right now. Archery elk hunting. Do you prefer glassing, spot and stock, or thick timber and using calls? Well, none of the above. If I can get away from thick timber using calls, I would rather be in like Colorado where there's meadows, or Montana or something. But calling is always what I want to do when I hunt elk. That is the whole purpose of September, is to take my bow, go into the woods, and try and trick an elk to come into me so I can punch an arrow through both of its lungs. Like there's not even a close second for me. If I'm going to glass something, I'd rather go on like a mule deer or a goat or a sheep hunt. I wouldn't purposefully book. I shouldn't say that because I'm actually talking to somebody right now. There are some late season elk hunts that would be more of that style that are attractive to me because they have other challenges, like mid-November, crazy weather, going in on mules, trying to find one and kill it at 600 yards. Okay, now we're talking. Now I'm getting fired up about going elk hunting like that. But if it's not that, I want elk calls and I want a bow in my hand and I want it to be September. What's your plan for a shelter? Well, let me go through the list of shelters that are going to be in use this year. I have a Durston X-Mid Pro 2. No, it's not the Pro 2, it's the Solid 2. Durston X-Mid Solid 2. I have an Argali Absorca 4P TP. I have an MSR Access 1. I have a Sea to Summit Telos TR2. And I think that's it. And all of those shelters will be in use at some point. I've got a backcountry bear hunter coming in on the 18th. And I think we're going to use the Durston X-Mid 2. I have another backcountry bear hunter coming in the following week. I might switch it up to the Argali Absorca for that one. I might just keep running the Durston. I don't know. And then I've got a goat hunt where maybe we'll take the Sea to Summit and the MSR Access 1. Maybe we'll just take the Argali without the mesh insert. I'm not really sure. And then I have a goat hunt that I'm going on with clients in September where I will probably take the Sea to Summit or the MSR, depending on what the weather looks like. They will be bringing their own shelter. So yeah, I have a combination of floorless and freestanding shelters that I will use depending on the circumstances. So there is no one answer. I will say the same thing I've always said. If you want to only own one tent for the rest of your life and you want it to do everything and you hunt by yourself or you sleep by yourself, go get the Hilleberg Niak. You can use it 4 months out of the year. It is going to live through anything you throw at it. It's expensive as hell, but it will last you 20 years. When hunting mountain bears with a bow, do you suggest call setups or spot and stock? I prefer spot and stock, but I've seen some pretty great success with calls. I'm going to be picking up a couple more Predator calls when I go to Cabela's tomorrow to get the last kind of batch of gear for camp. And I want to experiment with a lot more calls this year. The tricky part is where I've traditionally hunted black bears, there's a good population of grizzlies. And it's not really recommended to use Predator calls in grizzly country, especially when you're archery hunting. And so I don't have nearly as much experience as I do with spot and stock. But especially with archery, like when they come in pretty aggressive to Predator calls. And I'd be worried about my hunter having enough time to like get set up and take a nice, clean, well prepared for shot. I'd much rather him stock in on it, know when it's happening, know when he needs to come to full draw, and be a little bit more mentally prepared. So of the two, that would be my preference. How would you physically prepare for your first backcountry hunt? First off, well in advance. No crash diets. These guys who get to 2 months before their hunt and then try and lose 20 pounds, worst thing you can do. You're shedding all your strength. You're going into it weak, dehydrated, just a whole bunch of stuff. And so you need to start 6, 8, 9 months out. And listen, depending on how much time you have and depending upon your fitness literacy, if you want the simplest game plan, you're going to go rucking 3 times a week. You're going to put 50 pounds on your back and you're going to walk for an hour to an hour and a half, 3 times a week. If you do that for 6 months, I guarantee you can go on any backcountry hunt in North America and you will hold your own. You might not be the first guy up the mountain, but you will not be the last. And you will never need to go home because you're not able to live up to the demands of the hunt. You will be fine. I guarantee that. If you can introduce some elevation, great. If you can't, have at least one of the 2 of those hikes on a treadmill where you can increase the angle of the treadmill to simulate, walking up a hill, because you are going to burn different muscles. Hits your glutes different, hits your calves different, and you want to work that stuff in. And try and wear the backpack that you're going to hunt with, because then that's going to break your body in for that particular backpack. Other than that, keep your diet reasonable. Keep your weight reasonable. Everybody's worrying about how to shave weight out of their backpack. I guarantee it will cost you less to lose 10 pounds off of your body than it will off of your pack. But don't do it last minute. Plan 6, 8, 9 months out. A really healthy rate of weight loss that is very impressive is 0.5 pound per week. That's 2 pounds per month. If you start 6 months out and you lost 10 pounds over that 6 months, that would be phenomenal. And that is a rate of weight loss that is likely maintainable. You can probably keep that off for the next rest of your life if you just keep eating reasonably. So that's the low hanging fruit. If you want to complicate things from there, here's what I will say. 99%. I'm reading this book right now, Training for the Uphill Athlete, written by, I think it's Scott House or Steve House. Yeah, Steve House, Scott Johnston, and Kieran Jornet. And it is blowing my mind how far off all these training programs that are written for hunters are. Like it's just bullshit. Like it actually has nothing to do with the metabolic processes required to increase endurance. And if you're talking about backcountry hunting, that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. You don't need to bench press 225. You don't need to do, 400 kipping pull-ups. You don't need to walk on your hands. You don't need to, clean and press. You don't even need to squat 225. None of these things are going to help you be a better hunter. Increasing your endurance while maintaining an acceptable level of lean muscle tissue is all you need to increase your odds of killing while you're on a hunt. And every single one of the programs that I've looked at so far has this completely backwards. They have people doing Metcon workouts. They have people doing HIIT training and sprints. And it's just like, it is completely antithetical to what the science says actually increases endurance. So just like the supplement stuff, I am slowly working. Guys, if I had a whole team of people working for me and I could pump out all the content that is in my mind that I am dying to give to the hunting world, all this stuff would be out there. And it kills me that I talk about it and I don't have it out as soon as I want. But I am working on a nutritional package, like a training package for hunters that would go over why all this shit is unnecessary and what they should actually do and break it down in a way where you don't need to be an exercise scientist to understand what it is you need to become more efficient and effective in the backcountry. But more on that to come. And I'm sure it'll piss lots of people off, which I can't wait to do. 6'5" and 270 pounds. Finding a sleep system has crippled my backpack hunting. Zen Bivy. I've never run the Zen Bivy. First of all, your pillow is probably the issue. Secondly, your sleeping pad is probably too thin. For a guy your size, I wouldn't want a 3-inch sleeping pad would be the bare minimum that I would go with. And I'd probably look for something closer to 3.5 inches. I recently just ordered the XPED 1R. This is a uninsulated, so it's got an R value of 1.2. So it's like a light 3-season pad. I sleep in my clothes anyway, so that's fine. It's 3 inches thick, retails for $130 US. It comes in at 17 ounces for the long wide version, which is 25 inches wide. And I don't know if it's 74 or 76 inches long. By far the lightest 3-inch pad at that size that I have found so far. I'm going to be rocking that for this backcountry bear hunt I'm doing with this guy in 2 weeks. And so I'll do a more detailed review on that afterwards. That seems like the best ultralight sleeping pad, early season, mid-season sleeping pad for a big guy. Other than that, I would look at like the insulated version of the Sea to Summit Etherlight XT or the Rapide SL from Big Agnes. Both of those, now they're going to be closer to 22 to 24 ounces. They're going to have an R value rating of somewhere between 3.8 and 3.2, and they're going to be closer to 3.5 to 3.75 inches thick and probably closer to $200. But those would be a better like one and done pad if you only wanted to own one, because they'll get you more suitably into those late season months. Now, let's address the real issue. Because your shoulders are so broad, you're probably neck angle is shit when you go to bed. And you're probably a side sleeper because most big guys can't sleep on their back because we think we're choking and dying from the snoring. So you need a better pillow. If you want the cheap version, you're going to take a stuff sack and you're just going to fill it with anything extra in your tent and you're going to put it under your head at night. I don't really like the blow up pillows anymore. If you want to spend a bit more money, you get the Dream Pillow from Archery. It's got this little kind of foamy bit on top with this kind of felt lining, and then it's got a pouch on the back that you can stuff shit into. My favorite pillow right now, works phenomenally. You can get it like 6 to 8 inches thick. The trick is don't fold the stuff that you're putting inside because it'll make it compact and hard. You literally just want to stuff it in there like you would stuff an old school sleeping bag, like one of those stuff sacks. Just stuff it in there. That'll create a lot of air pockets and it'll create a lot of loft and it'll work a lot better for you. Try those two things, circle back with me. I got a soft spot for the big guys, being a big guy myself. Tent questions. Sheep hunting end of August in northern BC. Floorless tent or not. Currently have the Seacoastside Silex with Next. We'll be running our Archery bag and the Neo Air X-Therm. Listen, this is about your comfort level. End of August, you're getting into more likely bad weather. Early, you know what? It doesn't matter, man. Northern BC, you could have a blizzard at any moment. So this is really about your level of risk tolerance. I have taken floorless shelters on the exact hunt you're describing, and I was just fine. I know people who have taken floorless shelters on that exact same hunt and got the shit kicked out of them. And so it's kind of what you're comfortable with. If you were going solo, I would probably advise against a floorless shelter. If you're going with somebody else, worst case scenario, the shit hits the fan, you've always got a backup or somebody to help walk you out, go ahead, take the floorless shelter. If you are an extremely experienced guy, I'd say go ahead, take the floorless shelter. If you are a less experienced guy, you are probably better off in a floored shelter. Something freestanding, something that's more durable, something like an MSR Hubba Hubba, a Sea to Summit Telos TR2, a Hilleberg NIAC, like one of these, the new Durston dome tent, like a more sturdy, freestanding 3-season shelter would be the safe recommendation in this circumstance. Current backpack setup. I've been running the K4 from EXO for quite a while now. I actually have I have a replacement bag that somebody is developing that I am testing that is probably going to be here this week, but will still be running on the K4 frame. And then somebody else is sending me a completely new ultralight setup that I'll be testing out. And then I still need to get around to the Kafaru versus initial ascent testing, which I will shortly. It's been insanely busy around here lately. But if somebody asks me what's my go-to recommendation, or if I'm going on a goat hunt, I need to take what I know works, it's the EXO K4 7800. Done. Best bang for your buck, phenomenal frame, phenomenal bag. It's a very simple decision for me. That is the pack that I recommend. If you had only 1 week per year to hunt, what would it be, assuming any tag is possible? Well, any tag is possible is a bit ridiculous because you would go do like a freaking sheep out in Nevada or like something ridiculous. Let's say any over-the-counter option, any resident over-the-counter option is available. I'm going archery elk hunting in the peak of the rut with my bow. If I can only do one thing, you put a gun in my head and say you're only doing one hunt again for the rest of your life. That's what I'm doing. It brings the most of my favorite things together as possible. Listen, there's things about sheep hunting that nothing else will replace. There's things about like winter goat hunting that nothing else will replace. But at the end of the day, the hunt that gets me the most bang for my buck and fulfills the most of my goals and fires me up the most, archery elk hunting in the rut with my bow. When are you announcing the winner of the spotter? Pretty sure Saturday morning. I'll confirm on Instagram in a couple hours. NIAC versus IAC 2 for Colorado. First rifle elk at 10 to 12K feet. may or may not be moving camp a lot. Well, I'm missing some kind of details. If you're by yourself, I would go NEAC all day. I mean, the IAC is coming in at like 6.3 pounds and is much more of a true two-person shelter. The NEAC's like a 1.5. You might sleep in there with your girlfriend or your kid, but you are not sleeping in there. I can't even sleep in there with my girlfriend, or my wife, I should say, my girlfriend. The NEAC is a real one-person shelter. The IAC looks to be more of a real two-person shelter. I'm still a little skeptical, but you'd have to make a use case for me. I guess the more vestibule space. For me, this is a pretty simple decision. I'm saving the 2.5 pounds. I would go NEAC all day. All right, folks, there you have it. Another, I love these Q&As, man. I apologize if I went on too many rants or if I seem too negative about things. Sometimes I get a little bit fired up. Here's something I want to share with you guys. I try really, really hard not to be negative on social media. Like, there are all kinds of times where like little quips or one-liners, or I'll see little things that I want to put on blast come into my mind, and I get halfway through making a post or halfway through recording a story about it, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to put this energy out there. I don't want to be somebody that shits on other people. I don't want to be somebody that only talks negative. However, when it comes to something like the supplements, listen, they're stealing your money, okay? That's not me just shit talking. That's me having principles and ethics and caring about you guys and making sure you don't get ripped off. The problem in social media is that if I just make a quick little post, it gets taken out of context, it inflames a bunch of people, it creates a lot of negative energy in the hunting space, and that's not something I want to do. So I try and save that stuff for the podcast where I can like get into the nuts and bolts, like explain why I have the opinions that I do. Like Vortex. I think Vortex makes some phenomenal products when you market them in the category they should be marketed in, which is like a value-based purchase for budget-minded consumers. If you marketed it like that, I would feel completely differently about the company. So it's not the products I hate, it's the way they sell them that I hate. And a lot of times if I get into that on social media, the nuance doesn't come across. So that's why I have a greater tendency to get on those rants on the podcast, because to me, long form media is the place for those conversations where we can like really get into it and dissect it and have like a good, healthy conversation, or in my case, a good, healthy monologue about it. So again, if it was too Debbie Downer for you, I apologize. To be honest with you, I think more people like it when I get fired up than find it annoying. So you probably don't, if that's not your cup of tea, you probably quit listening to this podcast quite some time ago. I can't thank all you guys enough, man. 2025 is just continuing to blow my fucking mind. I almost get choked up when I think about it. The grind that I went through in 23 and 24 and like just continually pushing through, like knowing this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I just got to keep working and working and working and working and working. And then to have all the pieces come together in 2025 like they have is just I'm so extremely grateful. So thank you all. Oh, I should have put this at the beginning of the podcast. Product update for Forged in the Backcountry. My shipment is sitting at customs right now. It has been there for 16 days. Anybody waiting on Forged orders, which is a shitload of people, know this. The second that stuff shows up at my door, it will be packed and sent to you. My mother and my mother-in-law are on standby so that if I'm guiding, when that stuff shows up, they can start printing labels and packing that shit to get you your guys' stuff ASAP. So thank you for the continued support. Orders are still rolling in even after the spotter contest is closed, which speaks volumes about how much you guys trust this gear. So thank you for that. and know that the minute this stuff gets here, your orders are going to be heading out. So thank you again for the continued support. And also, anybody who wants in on that June 8th bear hunt, 6 days, British Columbia, any weapon, let's kick some ass and kill a giant black bear, jay@mindfulhunter.com. If you could take a moment and engage with the content, share, like, comment, post a review on the podcast platform of choice. Like, leave a rating and a review. That is what really drives podcast ranking the most. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, thank you for tuning in.